Farmers and agricultural workers all have one thing in common. They've all got weeds, hence the invention of weed killers. It's estimated that 3 billion pounds of herbicides are going to be sprayed across farmlands. To put that in a bit of perspective, that's about the weight of 60,000 elephants. And of all the different herbicides or weed killers out there, there's one very popular one called glyphosate. Glyphosate was proposed to be non-toxic to animals because it targeted a protein-making process that was unique to plants. Fast forward 50 years, and the conversation is very different now. Glyphosate's implicated in affecting animals in the ecosystem, but also human health, particularly in the area of potential cancer-causing effects. For something like this, you might be thinking why you might have heard of glyphosate. Glyphosate is also known by its commercial name, Roundup. Roundup is glyphosate, the weed killer component, plus an entire supporting cast of other chemicals that are designed to help glyphosate function even better. My focus was understanding how glyphosate and Roundup exposure affects the nervous system, how we think, feel, and move, particularly seizure behavior. Seizure disorder is one of the most common nervous system disorders for humans. So understanding this was going to be an enormous undertaking, and I started at square one using an invertebrate model, a little microscopic worm called C. elegans. C. elegans naturally lives in the soil, so understanding how this might be affected by glyphosate and Roundup exposure also has a significant ecological component. We take the C. elegans and literally provide an electric shock to them, which disrupts their natural movement. How long it takes them to resume their natural movement is the length of the seizure. We found that glyphosate and Roundup almost doubled the length of the seizure behavior in the C. elegans. And more than that, over a third of our worms in certain Roundup conditions just didn't recover. These findings really pushed me to understand the mechanisms behind this prolonged seizure behavior, because it not just applies to how this might affect human health, but the other organisms in our ecosystem, those in the soil, and those even like pollinators, such as honeybees. Before we come up with solutions, we have to understand the scope of the problem. And that's what my project is designed to do, to understand the scope of how glyphosate and Roundup exposure affects us.